The chiffon cake is an example of a separated egg sponge, and we make this in three major parts. So I have my liquid with my egg yolks here, I have my dry ingredients, and then I have my ingredients for my meringue. So we're gonna put this together in the three portions, and I'm gonna show you how you could possibly add some flavoring to it. The first step is to mix your liquid ingredients in a bowl that's big enough to accommodate all of your batter at the very end, because everything is going to get folded into this. So I have my water and my oil, my egg yolks. These have been separated, and that's why we call it a separated egg sponge. The whites will get whipped with the sugar in the meringue. And then I have my vanilla extract. So what I want to do is just whisk this together so it's completely mixed up. My eggs have also been at room temperature, therefore it'll make a better meringue and the yolks will break up very easily. So you can tell it's mixed well when it starts to create the bubbles. We're going to set this aside and sift our dry ingredients. The second stage of our preparing for our chiffon cake is to sift the dry ingredients. So we have our cake flour. You can do this in stages if you like. We have our sugar. We have our baking powder, along with our salt. I do tend to use kosher salt for everything, but you could use a fine sea salt, or table salt is just a little too fine there. So we're gonna add the rest of our dry. Make sure that there are no lumps so that all of that is evenly distributed. And if you do find some lumps at the bottom, just push it through with your fingers. And most likely you're gonna have a little bit of salt left over, but if there's no lumps of baking powder, just dump the salt in and you have that mixture ready to go. If you'd like to add some spices into your cake mix, you want to do it in your dry mixture. So I have some dry spices here, and you just want to sift it along with your flour. So you can kind of scoop up some of the flour and make sure it's sifted in well. This will just give a nice flavor profile to the actual cake itself. You can flavor your icing or you can flavor your cake. The next step here is to incorporate our dry with our wet ingredients. So in our larger bowl, which should contain your wet, I'm going to be adding the dry and mixing this in. Just whisk until it's completely smooth. It's going to create a paste-like batter. And then the last step will be to mix our meringue and fold it into our cake. So really make sure you put a little muscle into this and get it as smooth as possible. This can all be done by hand. The ingredients you have left should be your room temperature egg whites and your second portion of sugar. Want to make sure to take precautions that your bowl is on tight and that your whip and your bowl are clean, free of any fat. I'm going to pour my egg whites into my bowl and go ahead and whip it on high. So once again, if your mixture is a little bit too little for the bowl, hold the bowl up so it really gets to the bottom. You want to whip this until it gets to white foam and then start slowly adding the sugar. Do not add the sugar along with the egg whites in the beginning. My meringue now is at white foam, and on a medium speed I'm going to slowly add my sugar in sprinkles while it keeps mixing. This should take a couple minutes to fully add the amount of sugar that you have and incorporate it while it's getting glossier and shinier and thicker to a stiffer peak. We do not want to over whip these peaks because it will create a crumbly texture to your cake that you will spend more time trying to incorporate and therefore deflating. So what we want to do is bring it a little bit under the stiff peaks to more of a medium peak while we fold it in. Continue taking time to add the sugar in a very slow fashion. been a couple minutes and I've incorporated almost all of my sugar. In this stage, patience really does pay off. If you have the speed too high, it can get out of control and you can feel like it's definitely going too quickly. So turn it down. I have it at about 5 or 6 right now. And again, I'm just gently sprinkling in the sugar. I can see it getting a little bit more stable, therefore it's going to be a little shinier. And then at the very end, we can increase the speed to get it to the peak that was desired. All of my sugar's been added, so I'm going to turn the machine off. And I want to scrape the sides just to make sure that I don't have any sugar sticking to the edge of the bowl. And then I want to show you that it's still fairly soft. This is getting close though, so I want to just crank up the speed just a little bit to get a little bit thicker meringue, and then we will go ahead and add it to our batter. Here is our meringue, and I want to show you what the peak looks like. So if you just take a little bit, it's typically, that would be a more of a medium stiff peak. So I don't want to over whip this. This is where most people run into issues, and then they get these chunks mixed in with their cake. So we want to make sure we mix it in with the right tool. We want to remove all of our whisks, and we want to use a rubber spatula. So I want to start by mixing in 1/3 of my batter, placing it in here and using the folding technique to cut through the center at about 2 o'clock to 7 o'clock. And the technique is to go through and turn the bowl. 2 o'clock to 7 o'clock. I am not moving this in my hand like this. I am just using a twist of my wrist. So incorporating this fully in stages, going around the outside edge once in a while, and making sure I don't have any white meringue streaks. Once that's incorporated, I will do the next step. Again, scraping the sides every so often. And you want to retain all of that beautiful mixture that you mixed air into. And that's the whole idea of the meringue, to make it very light and airy. So now we will take our second portion and mix this the exact same way. You see how I'm holding my spatula down at the base of it, not here, because this, you don't get a lot of leverage and it hurts your wrist. So hold it a little bit firmer, and again, turn the bowl towards yourself as you are mixing through, and scrape to the bottom so you actually see a streak down in there. All right, this looks beautiful. So we're gonna add the very last bit of meringue. Make sure you scrape it all out of there. And fold that in. This is finished when you don't see any more of the white streaks of meringue. Our batter is ready to be placed into our lined cupcake pan. So I just have some paper liners in here. You never want to bake this directly in the cupcake pan. They always are really difficult to get out. So line them with your paper liners, and then go ahead and place an equal amount of batter in each one. Everyone might have a different size ice cream scoop, so whatever you decide, make sure it's the same amount in every single cupcake so that it will bake evenly and consistently. I'm gonna fill these about 3/4 of the way full because I do want them to come up over the top. I always bake on a sheet pan just in case something happens and it bubbles over. It's much easier to clean than getting into the bottom of your oven and it burning. So we're gonna place this in our 375-degree oven in the center rack, and we'll check it in about 15 minutes. Our cupcakes are done. They're not going to have a huge dome because of the nature of the chiffon cake, but they are risen up. And mine took about 18 minutes, but again, check yours around 12 and then just keep checking in your oven. I did have it on convection so that it will give it a little bit more rise a little bit quicker. So we're going to let these cool down and then we'll ice them with our buttercream. For this, I created a chocolate buttercream, and what I did was I added melted and cooled chocolate, dark chocolate, to the buttercream mixture. Place it on with the whip after the buttercream is made, and then just whip that in until it's really well incorporated, and then go ahead and smooth that with a paddle so it's ready to be piped. So when we're working with our piping bag, you want to make sure that your tip goes all the way through and that your plastic is about here on the tip so that it's not impeding the design. Then make sure that you fold the bag all the way back so you can easily hold this with one hand. If you have something potentially that's runny, you want to twist the bag and push it into the tip, and that will help prevent anything coming out. So I'm going to load up my pastry bag, and this will help prevent any of our buttercream from getting on the outside edge and making a mess when you're starting to pipe. Only fill the bag as much as you can handle. Do not overfill it. You can always open it back up and fill it again. So when you're ready to use the bag, press it down. A good trick is to use a plastic scraper. Go ahead and scrape it all the way down into there, releasing any air pockets. And you have a much cleaner area to work with. Go ahead and twist the bag, unhook your tip, and you're ready to pipe. On my cupcakes, I'm just going to do a nice rosette pattern. You want to really hold the grip with your lead hand, and you want to go in a counterclockwise position, lifting it up over itself, going around once, lifting the bag a little, going around twice, and stop. When you stop, you swirl off, and that's what gives you the really beautiful look to the buttercream. This takes a lot of practice. If you don't like the one that you just did, go ahead and scrape off the buttercream and start over. I'm using my left hand as a guide. I am not squeezing with my left hand, I'm squeezing with the palm of my right and just letting the bag do the work. And notice that I'm twisting the bag every time, and that helps put more pressure here so I don't need to squeeze with my fingertips. Feel free to decorate these cupcakes with whatever you happen to have around. I have some candied orange slices that I love chocolate and orange, so I'm going to decorate that on the top there. And I also happen to have some mint herb crystals. These are really fun to play with. They're like sugar crystals. So chocolate, mint, orange is a great combination. And then I happen to have also these little balls, silver balls that I decorated with sugar. So these look really fun. They're great for Halloween, great for any time. You can change whatever toppings that you want to put on these cupcakes.